All right, this is a review for our exponents test. The first thing we need to do is make sure we know what an exponent is. An exponent's going to have some base, and it's going to be in the top right-hand corner of that base. The base is the number being multiplied by itself, and the exponent tells us how many times. So if I asked you to expand this out as multiplication, you'd say, well, that's 4 times itself 3 times. And if you needed to solve this, well, you could say, well, what's 4 times 4? That's 16. 16 times 4 equals what? 64. So 4 to the third power is 64. That's all an exponent is. Now, this also works algebraically, right? If we had y to the fifth power, that equals y times y times y times y times y. We also need to be clear about what a negative exponent means. For place value kind of helps us visualize this, right? We've got our ones place, our tens place, our hundreds place. And then over here, we have our tenths place, our hundredths place, right? Because each time, we're dividing by 10. That's just how place value works. So it's important to realize, well, this is 10 squared, right? 10 times 10. Well, if we divide by 10, we're going to be 1 less power of 10, so we'll be at 10 to the 1. And if we divide by 10 again, we're at 1 less power of 10. Well, if we divide by 10 again, 1 over 10, we're going to be at 1 less power, so 10 to the negative 1. And if we divide by 10 again, we're going to be at 1 less power of 10, or 10 to the negative 2. And in general, when I ask you, what is, say, 4 to the negative 2, what I mean by that is the inverse of 4, right? Divide it by 10, flip it over, 1 over 4, 2 times. Flip the 4 over, 2 times. 1 over 4 times 1 over 4. If I said, what is x to the negative third power? You'd say, well, that's 1 over x times 1 over x times 1 over x. Now we need to look at doing some operations with numbers in exponential form. If I said 5 to the third times 5 squared, the first thing you need to do is write this out as multiplication. What is 5 to the third? That's 5 times 5 times 5. My operation is multiplication, so I'm multiplying that by 5 times 5. Okay, well now let's look at this. How many times is 5 being multiplied by itself? This is just 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. So this actually comes about to be 5 to the fifth power. If I said, what's y to the fifth times y to the third? You would say that's y times y times y times y times y, right? That's y to the fifth times y times y times y. Okay, well, now that we've taken a look at this, how many y's are there total? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 y's. So this is y to the eighth power. And in general, anytime we're multiplying two numbers with the same base, we just add those exponents up, right? This is going to be y 5 plus 3. There's 5 y's and 3 y's, so there's a total of 8 y's, or y to the eighth. This works even with negative exponents. If I said, what is 6 to the third times 6 to the third times 6 to the negative 2, you'd say this is 6 times 6 times 6 times 1 over 6, right? Because it's a negative, that means flip it over. 1 over 6 times 1 over 6. Well, now we just need a little bit of simple fraction logic here. If I have 6 over 6, right? 6 times 1 over 6, that equals 1. That cancels out. 6 times 1 over 6, that cancels out. And we're left with 6 to the first power, which is just 6. Still, we just added those exponents, right? 3 plus negative 2 equals 1. This works for negative numbers, negative bases. If I had negative 3 to the third, that means negative 3 times itself 3 times. What's negative 3 times negative 3? Hey, that's 9. Times negative 3, right? That's going to come out to be negative 27. Now when we talk about division, what if I said 6 to the fourth divided by 6 squared? Well, we can rewrite this as a fraction, right? And that means 6 times 6 times 6 times 6 over 6 times 6. Well, what is 6 divided by 6? Just like earlier, right? That's 1. That cancels out. 6 over 6, that's 1. That cancels out. And we're left with 2 6s, which is the same thing as subtracting our exponents. Algebraically, if I said what is b to the 5th divided by b to the 2nd, you would say that that is b times b times b times b times b over b times b. These cancel out, and you're left with b to the 3rd. Just subtracted those exponents. Same with negative exponents here, right? If I had negative, let's say I had 7 to the negative 2 divided by 7 to the negative 5. Well, what is negative 2 minus negative 5? That's negative 7, right? So the final answer would be 7 to the negative 7th power. The last thing that's on this test is talking about square roots. And square roots are just the opposite of exponents. Let's say I asked you what is 4 squared. You'd say, hey, that's 4 times 4, which is 16. So working backwards, if I said, hey, what is the square root of 16? You would say, what number times itself equals 16? 4 does. 4 equals 16. So the square root of 16 is 4. If I said, what's the square root of 100? I'm just asking what number, when it's squared, what number times itself equals 100? 10 times 10 is 100. So the square root of 100 is 10. What's the square root of 64? Well, 8 times 8 is 64, so it must just be 8, right? That's all that we're asking of when we ask for a square root. Hope this helps. Good luck on the test.